Okay, go. Okay, we're live. Good morning, everyone. My name is Catherine McNamara, and I'm leading the first session for the Flash Fiction Festival. We have a group of editors to start the day, 6 different editors in different parts of the world, and we'll be talking about the process of editing, putting together an issue, preferences, rejection, all of the things that editors have to think about when they work through your submissions. If you do have questions, put them on the space on the YouTube channel, and then we'll try and answer them as we go along. My name's Catherine McNamara, and I'm originally Australian, but I live in Italy. I'm flash fiction editor for Litra magazine, and I've been sort of fumbling around with flash fiction for a long time now and doing my best at it. I'm going to go through the editors who we have with us today, and then we're going to jump into some questions about the process. So we have Christopher Allen, who's publisher and editor of Smoke Long Quarterly. We have Robert Barrett, who's co-editor of Splonk, Ireland's bilingual journal. We have Lola Elvey, who's founding editor of Fingers, Toes, and coordinator of Youth National Fiction Day. We have Ingrid Jeniajewski, editor-in-chief of Flash Blood and consulting editor at the Prose Poem. We have Tracy Slaughter, editor of the journals Mayhem and Poetry New Zealand. And we have Rachel Smith, who's an editor at Flash Frontier and a screenwriter. So lots of different talents being brought together. I'll start straight away with the questions because we don't really have a lot of time, and I know how quickly it goes when we're here just for an hour. So one of the first questions that I want to sort of start the discussion with is what's your rapport with the form, with the flash fiction form, and how did you fall into it? Because I think we've all been doing it for different amounts of time with different sort of degrees of success, lots of publications. Some of you have won so many awards, it's embarrassing, and lots of books published, lots of publications in anthology. So congratulations to all of you about your work. So does anyone have something to say about their rapport with the form, with the flash fiction form? I mean, how did you get into this game? I remember, Ingrid, you told me something interesting in your email. If you want to start, I mean, that was a great answer.
I was one of these people writing lots of very boring novels that weren't going anywhere. And then I had a child, and all of a sudden she wasn't sleeping, and my word count got very, very short. So I started out writing flash and haiku and short form poems as a way of doing something that I could edit and think about in my head. And then, of course, I fell in love with the form, and I really haven't looked back. I love it for what it is rather than as a writing exercise now.
Oh, it's much more than a writing exercise. I really think a good flash is just an amazing achievement, really. Does anybody else have anything to say about how they began or how they fell into the form?
I'll jump in there because I had a pretty unique entry into it as well. I didn't know there was such a thing as Flash, to be honest. I just liked short stories or very short stories. That's what I thought they were called. And then, I eventually bumped into a few kind of like-minded people. I went, oh, there's more than me. And I kind of found my tribe back in the glory days of Twitter, before it got taken over by the current owner, and I just had fun with it and kind of found my tribe, and that's what got me into it.
Yeah, it's a great tribe. I agree. Anybody else have anything to say?
I can really relate to that kind of accidental discovery of it, that, these were just kind of experiments in my notebook, really, when I started writing. And I, like Robert, I just thought I was writing extremely short stories. But there were certain kind of people that really lit me up when I read their work, and I started to realize, that other writers were doing it too. I remember when I discovered Jane Ann Phillips' Black Tickets, and that a short story collection with these like really just cut gems of flash pieces in it, and that really got me excited, and I started to kind of quest more in that direction.
It is a really exciting form. I think there's a lot of adrenaline in writing it and sort of in producing something that actually works. I mean, and pulling it off. It's really a feat, I think. What about you, Lola? Do you feel, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sorry.
Oh no, go for it.
I actually I kind of come at flash fiction more from the poetry side of things, but I find that flash fiction really offers this opportunity because it's such a short form. There's so much emphasis on the language. It's everything is kind of laid out in the open. You're not able to hide any of the techniques. So I find that it kind of marries the best parts of poetry and the best parts of storytelling in a way. So I really enjoy that.
It does. And it sort of, I think it sort of lays bare humanity when, you know, in its best sort of version. You really get to right to the goods. I think that's the beauty of it when it works. Okay, I wanted, if you feel like talking about your own creative process, because you're all writers and editors, and I wanted to ask some of you to talk about, do you divide the editing part of your day or your world with from your creative side, or does something spill over? Are you ever influenced by what you're reading? I mean, I imagine you're reading lots of submissions as I am, and sometimes your head sort of is, you know, full of other people's words. Does that interfere with your own process, or is it sort of cut and dry and it works that way for you? Does anyone have any thoughts about that? Not really.
I
Well,
think it's
in my
sometimes.
Oh, sorry, no, you go.
No. Oh, you first. You first.
Well, in my case, Fingers Comatose, of course, is a youth journal. So the writing, reading the writing doesn't necessarily, like it doesn't necessarily filter into my own work, but I think editing always filters into your own writing. Like the more you read, the better you get at writing. And I find it exhilarating to see what kids are writing now because I think it's often different, or it can be different or new. And then, of course, there are some themes that keep coming back. And I think that prompts me to explore a kind of, I guess, fresh ideas in my own writing because you can kind of get stuck in your own opinions sometimes.
Oh yeah, it's good to be shaken. That's true. Ingrid, you were starting to say something.
Oh, I agree completely with, the more you're reading, the more you're editing other people's work, the more it sort of hones your own. I think also as editors, we have to be really careful to kind of ring fence some time for our own work and our own craft, because there's always more to give to the journal and to the people that you're reading. So it can be sometimes hard to feel like, okay, I'm going to be selfish and take this time to work on my writing. But it's, I think important for our craft and for us as editors to be good editors. We need to keep writing as well.
Yeah, what I find about editing is it's sort of like karma. The more you give, the more the energy goes around. I think it's a really healthy thing to get involved with the journal and learn from other people's work as well. I actually really enjoy all of that. This is a bit of a silly question, but if any of you have a memorable flash piece that you've published in a journal, I mean, not your own work, I mean, something that you published as an editor. Are there those stories that sort of stay with you, that have warmed your heart, or you don't really forget them, or they've done well, they've gone into an anthology, a big anthology? Do any of you have any stories like that that you're really proud that you sort of plucked out and published for the magazine? Can anyone remember anything like that that sort of stayed with you? No, I can. I mean, I have quite a few that I haven't let go of.
I had one person come up to me years after I published their piece and tell me it was their first publication and they didn't believe that people like them could be published authors. And, for me, it was, a little story and I was working with it, but it had really, really changed her attitude. And she became very prolific after that. And I just, walking away kind of makes me feel really good to have been a little part of that journey.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful thing when you open the door for someone. It's great. Were you going to say something, Christopher?
I was just going to agree 1,000%. That moment when someone says that was my first publication, that's the greatest thing in the world. And so, yeah, I can't think of a particular writer or story that we published that we're particularly proud of, because I think everything we do, we are just 1000% behind. But those times when it's the person's first, it's really great, really good.
Brilliant. No, I agree. I agree. Anyone else have anything to say about that type of process and how it makes you feel?
Well, we have someone in the competition this time around, actually. And of course, because you're dealing with young writers, you get this a lot. But this time around, one of our shortlisted writers is 12 years old. She's the youngest person on the shortlist, and she's and it's her first thing she's ever entered into a competition, which is very exciting. And it does kind of make your day to hear something like that. And I really like it when the authors express that as well, because of course sometimes they may not tell you if it's their first thing, but when they do, it kind of makes your day.
That's great. No, now you're making me interested in what would a 12-year-old write about? Because I don't know, it was so long since I was 12. What do 12-year-olds write about? I mean, that would be interesting for me to know what kids actually write about. And kids who write, that's wonderful, because I don't think so many kids write. Well, everybody's on their phones. You know what it's like nowadays. I mean, it's a different world. That's wonderful. A 12-year-old on a shortlist with a great story. That's really good. This is a technical question, really, about when you're putting together an issue or an anthology or even your publication calendar, because everybody I know the journal comes out in a different way. But do you, when you're putting together an issue, do you look for variety or for common themes? And if you're putting an issue together, how do you go about that?
We really just.
You go.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
No,
I'm
go
just
ahead.
going to talk about Flash Frontier. So we always issues are always themed, so that makes it slightly easier. And these are themes in English and Te Reo Māori as well. Yeah, but within that theme, I guess we're looking for pieces that come to it in a different way, so that there's lots of different voices and approaches to that theme. Yeah, so that we get a variety, but all kind of united in some, even if it's a vague way, around our theme.
Yeah, no, that can be really exciting and fun to put together, I think. Christopher, you had something to say.
Yeah, sorry. We never have themes. So we're kind of the opposite. We're just looking for the Flash that we fall in love with. Only one time have I decided to keep a Flash for the next issue, because we loved two stories and they were very similar. And I thought they were structurally similar. They were kind of thematically similar. And I just thought that's kind of strange to have these two stories in the same issue. So, I mean, I would tend toward variety instead of theme, because we definitely don't decide on a theme for an issue. But yeah, I am thinking of variety, because I think an issue from Smoke Along should at least show the palette of what Flash can do. So if they're all samey, they're all the same type of Flash, that's a bit odd. But we rarely ever have to deal with that situation.
So your submissions, they cover a great variety of voices and a great variety of themes in themselves. Yeah.
Right. I have read absolutely everything You Cannot Shock Me ever. I'm sure you do. I'm sure you too. I mean, editors of Flash, because we get 40 submissions each day. So yeah, I don't think there's a theme that we haven't clicked on, opened, and thought, I've never seen that theme before. No,
Or I'm shocked.
and I'm not shocked. I don't think I haven't been shocked in 20 years. So I've been repulsed. I've been repulsed sometimes. Like, there are things that you open and you think, I didn't want to read that. Why did you subject? Yeah. But that's also very uncommon too.
Have you ever had, this is just coming to me now, but have you ever had two stories that were quite similar, perhaps in theme or in imagery or motive or even structure, and you've had to choose the best one and get rid of one? it just strangely, that's happened to me when I've had stories that were so twinned or interwoven, written by completely different people, and you just had to say, okay, we had one that was, we couldn't take it because it was similar to something else. I think that happens sometimes.
I was working for the Evansville Review, and we were doing, print edition. So we had, a very set amount of space. And in our, we didn't have a themed issue, but we got zillions of hurricane stories, really good hurricane stories. And, some of them better than the ones we ended up taking, but we went for the variety in the end. That happens every year with flash flood. We tend to get these clusters on sometimes very unique, unusual themes, like putting on an animal skin, or percolators, or puce. And you just wonder if somewhere there was some workshop where, there was a prompt or, a picture or something. And we're always on the lookout for why are we seeing these micro themes come up?
Exactly. Which workshop did these 35 stories come from? Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had that quite visible. You can kind of see the exercise beneath the skin. And yes, I have had that happen, that multiple pieces are clearly responding to the same prompt. And I actually have had two very strong pieces that were just far too similar to include in the same journal, and I had to make that very, very difficult decision. But in general, I'm absolutely looking for variety. I agree with what Christopher said, that flash can just travel at light speed in any direction, and really what you want coming through in the journal is that kind of explosive diversity. You don't want something that's just kind of putting the same stamp on the form over and over and over. Yeah.
And that is something to remember when you're writing in a workshop to a prompt, that you should be thinking past the typical response to the prompt. Like make it your own. It's like a singer not doing the karaoke version of the song. You need to own the song, do it in your voice, take it much further, because 25 other people are going to write the typical thing. So
that's so true.
Yeah, I would say that's the same. Even though we write like select from a theme, we're still looking for that same kind of variety. And there's nothing better than reading a piece that is really different from others. And I guess that's what we're all looking for, isn't it? Something that surprises and delights us.
Yeah.
And I think even as writers, that's what we want too. We want to surprise ourselves and really, push through and get beyond what is normal, what's safe. Sort of, it's that's the exciting thing, I think, in our own craft, really. Okay, this is the question that we always have to answer, I think. What message would you have for writers about dealing with rejection? I mean, we've all dealt with it ourselves. It's not as though we haven't. We've all had, long paths of rejection letters behind us as well. So what would you say to somebody who's going to get a rejection tomorrow, because it's going to happen?
Well, I'm going to go ahead and solve this problem for everybody. Is that okay?
Please.
Yes.
Is it okay if I just sort this out once and for all? Feel the pain, feel it very hard for a very short time, and then just use it as fuel and go again, But I think trying to avoid it won't work, because everybody feels it and it's horrible and it's rotten. But if you just, feel it intensely, then shake it off and use it as fuel, go right back at it.
I truly, truly believe that, if you're putting in the work and you're persistent, your words will find the right home eventually. I had my first competition first place win had been rejected 20 some times, from all sorts. The first large cash amount of money I got for a piece of writing, I wrote for a workshop to prove I could write well enough to get in the workshop. And I did not get a place in the workshop, but I did end up getting $1,000 for it. So, I think it's just a matter of finding the right home. And generally, editors we're cheering for you. We want to see these pieces that were rejected out in the world. And when we see them, and the ones that kind of were close, we are doing a little dance of joy for you. We're not sitting there going, we want to ruin your life. We're writers too. And we're right there with you.
Yeah.
Definitely. Mm.
I can definitely resonate with that that sense of how hard it is to send out all those rejections. I feel it, like I carry that weight. Like I try, and do it, at a time when I know I can actually withstand the kind of the emotional drag that it leaves with me, because I know what I'm doing, and the kind of terrible bomb I'm putting in the email. But I really do try and kind of reinforce that sense of, do not let this defeat you. Do not kind of take this as a message to stop. It's a message, like Robert says, to absolutely just, absolutely feel the pain, but push through and keep going. So I really do hope that people get that message, because we're easily crushed little beings, artistic beings, horribly thin-skinned and oversensitive. I haven't met any of us that are bulletproof and, kind of armor-plated. So we all get it. It's taken me years and years to grow a spine that can withstand, that kind of thing.
And I don't think it gets any easier. Sorry, you go, Chris.
It does get easier. What helps is age, because then you start to forget things. And so like I can't remember who rejected me 6 months ago. I would have to look back through my submittable, page to even know that I was rejected. So, yes, Robert says, own it, like live it, live the pain. But a few days or weeks later, you've forgotten it completely. It's like that person you dated in college. Now you don't remember the person very well anymore. So it all passes under the bridge. But the rejection process that we have to go through every day, because that's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning, is go through the submittable queue and deal with what I have to deal with. And so what a person has submitted one thing, well, I have to send 68 rejections. So I am dealing with more rejection. And if you are an empathetic person and not cold-hearted, you do feel like I'm disappointing people. My job, my whole job is about disappointing people. So it's like you have a competition and you make a few people really happy, but 99% of them you're disappointing. And so it's actually a very difficult thing to do. But we chose to do it, so it's wonderful.
Personally, I've come to see rejection often as like a little gift, because sometimes things come back and really it wasn't ready and I've made it better. It's given me an opportunity to review it. And if I do look at it and I don't change anything, well, then I'm more solid in my belief in that piece. So it's maybe a helpful way of reframing.
I was just going to qualify there as well. There's a particular joy on the editing side when you have rejected somebody, but you've done it in a certain way and they keep coming back and then they do eventually knock it out of the park. I mean, that's a big win for me. That's as good as it gets,
Yeah, that's what we try and do where possible, is give it a bit of encouragement and I guess some gentle editing tips to encourage people to resubmit. Yeah, and editing of some work that we do accept as well, just very lightly, so that we're kind of continually encouraging, and particularly when it's for our Aotearoa issues where it's a reasonably small pool of writers, and we often know each other. It's a really nice way to do it.
Yes, we do much the same, and especially because we're working with kids and young adults, it's nice. I think sometimes actually we have issued out a rejection where we actually give comments and encourage them to submit back. That happens every now and then because sometimes it's just almost there, and I feel like it's a much more kind of educational approach, and then I think it hopefully saves me a little bit from that fate that Christopher's talking about, where you live to disappoint others, because hopefully you actually end up bringing people up through the process, which is really rewarding.
Yeah. One thing I would say, just to kind of link in with what Rachel said about it being a small pool, is when you get rejected, don't abuse the editor because I've certainly had some very colourful responses fired back at me in capitals, kind of bold, inflated font, saying some rather unfavourable things. And I've also had my co-editing team who are all young writers with their hearts absolutely in the game, who are giving up their time. It's all unpaid. None of us are getting a dime for any of this labor. And we are all really, filled with that sense of genuine care for what we do. So yeah, I would just say that because you do tend to remember those who hurl muck back at you.
I actually didn't realize that happened. That's terrible. That's really shocking.
But that's the positive thing about not having a very good memory. I forget those people too. Yeah, but somebody attacked me the other day, and I'm sorry. What can you do?
Yeah.
Gosh, no, that's bad form. You don't kill the editor because it's true. It's a tough job, and most of us are unpaid, and it is very thankless and ongoing. And that's definitely something to remember. Well, this is sort of tied a little bit with that point. 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. Do you feel that's true or false? Perhaps in your own work, but also as a message to give to somebody who might be submitting to you next week or this week. What do you think? To get the job done, to get the good idea, to get it to sort of submission, sort of readiness, and then to finally get published. What does it really take?
It's definitely 99% perspiration, but maybe more like, at least 25% inspiration. It should be over 100%, maybe.
Wait a minute. You're the mathematician, right?
Yeah, so I know what I'm talking about.
No, I fully agree with you, Ingrid. Those numbers worked for me.
Yeah.
I think the beautiful
small,
I think the beautiful thing about Flash for me is sometimes it can be a form that just comes completely out of left field. So it's like 100% inspiration in the instant that it arrives and I write it. And so it doesn't feel like there's perspiration other than that heightened adrenaline of something just completely detonating for you and just boom, you have this piece. The perspiration goes in then at the editing and shaping and sending off and all that other stuff. But I love Flash for that just kind of flood of nothing but inspiration, just kind of rippling through your veins in the instant when you get the idea. Because for me, it often arrives from nowhere.
Yeah,
I agree with Tracy. I think sometimes there's ones that have been, and of course it's important to kind of edit and craft whatever you write, but I think sometimes there's ones that are just really, they have a kind of purity to them because they have been put on the page in a way that is really streamlined, and that's quite exciting to write and to read. I don't know, of course, which ones are written like that when I read submissions, but sometimes I wonder, because sometimes you read something and you think, this feels like it just came straight through the author.
Yeah.
But I suppose you also have all the reading and the editing and the practice beforehand as well, the previous stories written that, for that inspiration to hit in that way, takes some groundwork as well.
Yeah,
that's true too. And you have all this background technical. You kind of have the background technique. I think kind of sits in the back of your mind and stews for a bit, which maybe allows for such a streamlined process every now and then.
Definitely, yeah. It kicks in and then takes off. It's wonderful. It's good to sort of let go and let it happen. It really is. It really is exciting, I think. One of the things that I think about often is because I do get I get a lot of international submissions, as I'm sure you all do too. And I have people who are who've acquired English, and so they're writing in English as a second language. And it's something that I admire. I mean, I speak other languages, but I don't speak them to the same level that I speak English. My Italian is not as good as my English. My French isn't as good as my English. And so when somebody makes a submission, and often they will lack confidence, or because a lot of the time I've done teaching and people will join a class and they'll say, yeah, but my English is not great. And my written English, I feel a bit sort of weak, underconfident. They don't sort of believe in their work so much. So I wanted to ask you what you think about that. Do you get writers who who write in English? Because obviously there's a lot more magazines and sort of there's a broader submission area. Do you get submissions from people who've acquired English and so they're writing? I mean, for me, I find that people can be even more original in their use of English wording and word sort of order and word choice. And so I give a lot of space and I have a lot of admiration for that. What's your feeling with these type of submissions?
There's a broad spectrum there, anywhere from someone just trying out the language to someone who is proficient as any native speaker. And so there's a broad spectrum. We get submissions from all over the planet. So from every imaginable person who's writing in English. So we're first of all looking at the story, the line level art. If there are a few non-native isms, that's really that doesn't matter at all. If the story is there, if there's really a person engaging with line level art, then yeah, we get lots of people. One of our fellows, Pega Ouija, is writing in English as a second language. She's from Iran, but Iranian American. And her prose is magnificent. And so, yeah, we get everything from somebody just starting out writing with the language and somebody who's winning awards with it.
Mm. No, I brought up the point just to give anyone who's listening, I mean, a little boost, a little bit of confidence. Don't feel that if your English is slightly imperfect or you don't feel it's the same as a mother tongue speaker, I mean, that doesn't mean you can't write a wonderful story and perhaps something that's even more special, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyone
I
have
would
any?
100% agree with that. I would say, it might, when we say imperfect, it might be imperfectly brilliant, and you're looking to be shaken out of the norm anyway. So I'd welcome those stories. I'd love to read them.
Yeah, same here. Actively welcome and encourage. And if you are feeling, worried about submitting, you could always put in a little context in the cover letter and just, say, this is not my first language. I'd be open to working with somebody if you would be, just something that, would give us a little nudge so that we could, I mean, oftentimes we don't read the cover letter until we've are seriously thinking about accepting or have accepted. But that, I think there's a lot of editors out there who would just relish the chance to work with a story like that. If the story is there and as Chris says, the line level art is there, then yeah, some mistakes in English is not going to be a barrier.
Yeah, I just would like for our audience, whoever might be watching this, just to especially to encourage young writers, because we get a lot of young writers who are writing in English as a second language, and it's wonderful to see, especially because it's at that age where you're so your mind is learning so quickly, and it's wonderful to see these young writers sometimes writing. Actually, in National Flash, the last couple of years, we've had a couple of winning stories, I think, that have been written in a second language, and it's really amazing what you can do even in a language that's not yours. So I definitely would like to encourage people to go for it.
Yeah, I would 100% second that. I think that the thing that often makes a writer is the intensity of their attention to the language itself, and that is naturally there with someone, for whom, they're having to pay the most utmost concentration to every word that goes down on the page. So it often really electrifies the lines and just brings out a natural poetry. And I think the best thing that any writer can find is their voice. And if your voice slips between tongues and, moves fluidly between two or even more languages, then that's your voice and that's what belongs on the page. So to cut one side of it off would just be, to kind of to impoverish, what you could be tapping into. So that's what we live to see as editors, someone who's really found their voice. So don't cut it in half and thinking that that's going to make it more presentable.
Yes, and actually
Definitely.
these bilingual stories, I wonder if we're seeing a lot more of that now. I don't know if you all agree that we're seeing more of that now, but I certainly notice it with the youth writing that we're actually getting a lot of stories that are primarily written in English, but they have dialogue in other languages, and it's so effective. And I like what you said about it electrifying the story. I think it does give it that charge.
A charge. I agree. Yeah, I think it's really important. I really, really do, to keep the doors open and encourage everybody in every possible way. And yeah, on that note, where do most of your submissions come from? I know, Christopher, you said yours come from absolutely everywhere. Does anyone have any sort of particular area of the world where their stories come from? Not really, just everywhere.
We're pretty international as well at Flash Flood. We're getting quite a lot more. Every year there are more and more international submissions, a larger percentage of the pool, which is great. I love that it's becoming a kind of much more kind of inclusive space.
Yeah, I'm trying to push for more. What about your readership, your main readership? Where do you think, or do you know where your main readership is located?
Harder for us to tell, especially given, I think our Twitter reach is much less than it used to be because of algorithm changes and whatnot. We get a lot of certainly a lot of North American and a lot of UK readers. We have a lot in India, Australia, New Zealand. But we're getting more and more. We're getting a lot of Nigerian readers at the moment, which is really exciting to see. Kenya, various places have little pockets. So, just be nice to connect the dots.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And it's wonderful when you get lots of submissions from, well, for me, I love having submissions from different African countries, a lot of Asian countries too. I get a lot of submissions from India, from China, and it's just great. I love the way everything is expanding. Do you have anything to say about the development of flash fiction in the past 10 years? Have you seen any changes in who's doing the writing, who's winning prizes, what sort of style, what sort of themes? Have any of you got anything to say about that? What's been going on over the past 10 years that you've seen in your reviews, in your submissions?
I think in general we're getting. Oh, sorry.
No, you.
I think in general we're getting more submissions and I guess more new writers, and kind of linking into the previous question for our international issues, submissions coming from all over the place, and in particular, as you say, like Asia and in Africa. And more and new Aotearoa writers. So I think it's really exciting because it feels like the flash fiction community internationally is growing, and it's really wonderful hearing new voices and I guess new approaches to the form. Always constantly kind of pushing it that little bit further, which is great as an editor to read.
And any change in themes, or I don't know, the ideas that are driving people? I mean, I know you all probably had lots of stories about COVID, and that's sort of gone, thank goodness. Any other type of theme that sort of comes?
We get a lot of COVID stories in the queue. I think we've published two. I don't know why I got balloons for that, but I occasionally get balloons, and I guess if I do that, I don't know. But We published one in a competition issue. Jemima Way published a COVID story, and we published recently. Dee Dee Wood we published a Dee Dee Wood story called 3 Hour Tour, and it was a COVID story. But the themes, I don't know. I keep going back through our archives and reading stories that really hold up even after 20 years. And they're just as fresh. They're just as like if they had sent us that today, we would have published it, you know. So I'm not sure, because we tend to publish really universal theme types of things. If something is really obscure, that's kind of a reason for us to pass on it. But I don't think the themes have actually changed that much. The understanding of what Flash is may have changed, and writers are more aware of what is Flash. So we do tend to get solid narratives that show an understanding of what Flash is. So maybe has changed over the last 20 years.
Oh, no.
I think one of the things I've seen, especially lately, is a really exciting rise in kind of hybridity, like writers working in Flash with a refusal to pin this to either prose or poetry. They're just kind of going hard at that threshold where, you know, both are completely are allowed. And so I that kind of work really excites me, when it's just so such an intense kind of utterance that it does not care whether it is catalogued as poetry or prose. It's just all out. And I've also seen I think a rise in really political work, but not with kind of a didactic essayistic tone, a sense of like the political lived now in the personal embodied realm. And so like there's been some really ferocious pieces of Flash. Like I've just finished proofreading the latest Mayhem, and it's just absolutely full of like red hot pieces that have something, you know, really inflamed to say about where we live and who we are right now. And it's using that kind of boundarylessness of Flash, which I hope it maintains. Like I really hope that Flash doesn't define itself into a corner and become, you know, this particular genre that can be boxed in. I really want to keep that openness, because for me that fusion of poetry and prose, or that refusal to kind of decide between, is where most of the exciting cutting edge work happens.
And do you think, no, sorry, I was just going to ask, just to finish that, do you think that readership is expanding? I mean, do you think there are more people reading flash fiction because it has these elements and this sort of excitement?
Yeah, it feels like there is, especially amongst the young, I feel like that Flash and poetry are both in a kind of a major renaissance. There's again, I think just that discovery of a way of speaking that isn't harnessed to any particular genre, and it's really exciting to see.
Yeah. Sorry, I spoke on top of someone. Was that you, Rachel?
No.
Or Ingrid?
That was
Sorry.
me. That was me. But
Sorry,
that's fine.
Lola.
No, that's fine. I'm just going off of what Tracy said about this kind of politicized writing. I think that I think we've noticed that a lot over the last 10 years at Fingers Come a Toes with young adults. I think that the young adults now, I feel like they're writing more I don't know, it's a lot of the stories, they're not necessarily directly political, but the outside world, whether it's climate change or politics or whatever's going on, is always informing a story, which I find very interesting. It's just in the background. It's part of the environment that the story takes place. So I think that's really interesting to see. I'm not sure that was as much the case 10 years ago. Not that we saw, at least. I think it's
true.
exciting too to see these young authors really they're writing, and sometimes we have these stories where they're writing very specific scenes, very intimate situations or conversations between two people, but they have a setting in a wider world. And so the author is obviously thinking about the wider world even when they're writing their specific story, which I think is something that maybe we all strive to do at times.
No, that's a great
I'm
point.
extending
And it's
I'm extending things a little bit with this, but I also think that, you know, the kind of discipline of writing Flash is probably making people better at writing other things as well. You know, just the fact that they're getting you know, Flash is a kind of a strict discipline, and it's making people better at just concentrating on smaller stories, and it's kind of expanding into, you know, short stories and novels. I think it's like a kind of a little nucleus that's just improving everything.
Yeah,
I
I
Right.
sorry, go on.
No, you go, Tracy. I was agreeing.
I was just going to say I totally agree with that. I think that novels are, you know, getting a massive shot in the arm by Flash writers now, you know, linking their Flash together. I think most of the novels that have really, you know, taken the top of my head off recently have been really exciting, fragmented, kind of disintegrating novels that have that nucleus of, you know, the kind of Flash particle at the core, and they just move like quicksilver, and it's just so exciting to see. So I do think it's making better writers in other genres.
I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
We
It's
need
sort
a
of,
sign.
yeah.
We need a sign that says Flash makes everything better.
It
I'll
does.
have it made. I'll have it made for us. Just
T-shirts, we'll start with the T-shirts. No, I'm aware that time's moving on, so I am going to cut out a little bit and just concentrate on two last questions. And because one of them I feel strongly about, I just wanted to ask how you feel about representation. So I think we're all trying to open our submission doors to underrepresented authors. And I just want to ask you, do you think that these authors are getting more work out there? There's a lot more awareness about that than there was 10 years ago. So do you think things are changing for underrepresented groups?
It's slightly hard to say sometimes, because sometimes you don't know the background of the authors that are sending work to you. So unless they state on their biography aspects of their identity, you don't necessarily know in some cases. But certainly looking at the range of bios that we get from like this year's Flash Flood compared to 5 years ago or even 3 years ago, it's a much more international, much more diverse group of writers. And I feel like year upon year, that does seem to be improving. So I'm very, very hopeful that that trend will continue.
Yeah, I think there is a lot more diversity in what's coming out. I really do.
Yeah, we
Anyone
try.
else have
Oh, sorry. Yeah, we try really hard to make sure we're including, because obviously we're in Aotearoa, the stories in Te Reo Māori and of Te Ao Māori are included. That's a small group of writers, I think, in Flash, but we really welcome and encourage those stories. And we have a couple of editors on the team, Vaughan and Iona, who help us with that. Yeah, so I think it's growing, and it's so important. I mean, they're the stories that we want to read.
Yeah, no, I do think it's. I think things are changing. I think awareness is changing, and certainly I hope it's changing for people who maybe before didn't think they had the right type of story. So I hope it's changing for people who are submitting at the moment.
I think it's a complex situation.
Yeah,
It's a very complex situation. At Smokelong, we try to to have in our process that the two people who read your work are not going to be from the same country, or it's not going to be, for example, two straight white guys from Iowa reading your work. That probably will never happen at Smokelong. it will be somebody from the United States and somebody from Australia, or it will be somebody from Nigeria and somebody from China, or Malaysia probably. We have 25 submissions editors, and I try to make sure that mix stays mixed, so that we are not so I don't see two people who are basically the same type of writer, or two women, or it's like I try to make sure that that built into the process we have diversity in mind. So the problem is, yeah, we read blind, and we have always read blind, and we believe in that. So it is difficult sometimes, because you don't want to just stereotypically choose a story because they're writing about something culturally, like eating a particular type of food, like just to let you know where I'm from, or it's a difficult situation because we're focused on the quality of the writing and the compelling story, and but we are always thinking about it. And I think it's anyone who says that journals these days are not paying attention to underrepresented writers. I don't think there's a journal out there who's not trying to do that. So I think maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think we are trying and at Smoke Long, we have a really, really difficult problem. We publish very few men these days. So men, wherever you are on this planet, send us your wonderful work. It's like every issue that we put out, we're like, okay, we need a man in this issue. It's like weird because so yeah, but it works out that way that we publish mostly women, but it's not because we don't want to publish men. It's just that it works out that way. But we're
it's the same. It's the same. We get primarily women submitting, and we end up publishing. I mean, again, we're reading blind or anonymously, but we're ending up, and that's been the case for multiple different Flash projects, but not the poetry projects that I've worked in. So it's kind of interesting, and I'm curious if that translates to other people's experience.
Yes,
it's exactly the same for me. Yeah. Sorry, you go, Lola.
Oh, no, that's fine.
No, I was just going to say it's exactly the same for me. I would like to publish more men, and it's not happening enough. I don't know why, but I think we would talk quite a lot about that if we got into that discussion. I don't really know.
Yeah, but, it is a discussion, but I'm not saying that we don't get a lot of submissions from men. We do get a lot of submissions from men. We just don't end up publishing them. And it's like, I'm sorry, I'm saying this to the world, but it's not because we don't want to. It's like we're always thinking we need call somebody, but we don't. We never do that. We never do that. It's all from the submissions queues.
Okay, I'm gonna have to.
I just think that I think this whole question about diversity and everything, I wonder if it ties into some of the things we've discussed previously as well in this conversation, because and what Christopher was saying about the fact that about how a lot of journals now will have this in mind, and even what we were saying earlier about how thrilling it is to see new writers or writers that have been rejected that come back. Like, it's nice to see new voices, and that includes then diversity as well. I think what none of us is looking for the same all the time. So I think that filters in. And I think we see it in this mix of languages too, what we've talked about with languages, what we've talked about with topics, the variety of things people are writing about content-wise, and the styles, the way people are writing in terms of the nuts and bolts of language, all ties in with this conversation, which is really interesting.
Definitely. We're going to have to sort of round up now because this is our last 5 minutes. And so before we get to the end, I just want to say thank you to all of you because it's been really interesting. I love hearing your points of view, and I'm sure the audience does as well. You were all generous speakers and sort of very exciting to listen to, so thank you for that. My last question, it sort of does tie into something that we were saying before, but it's just an acknowledgement of the hard work of being an editor. After sort of everything that you give to this task, this position, whether it be volunteer or not, what's your greatest satisfaction? I know we already touched upon that before, opening the door, I mean, publishing somebody's first piece of work. Is there anything else you'd like to add about what this job gives you or what this task gives you and why you're still doing it? Because you've all been doing it for a very long time, I think. Anybody want to say anything like that?
So many
It's
editors.
also, oh, no, you go.
You. Please. For me, so many editors and teachers and judges and people have been so generous with their time and with my own work, and it's a way to pay it forward to the next group of writers. You know, I just, again, it comes back to lifting other people up around me. There's no better feeling.
Lola, what were you going to say? Oh, sorry, Tracy.
Oh, I just wanted to add that because we've talked a lot about new writers. But it's also really satisfying to see the same names come back and see how their writing changes over the years. I think that's also something that I find really satisfying. And especially in my case, working with young writers and seeing how they grow up. We have some people who started submitting to us when they were young and then have actually graduated beyond Fingers Come a Toes now and are getting published in other places. And that's really exciting to see, as well as all those new voices.
Yeah, it is. How about you, Tracy?
I was just going to say, I often think about, you know, there's been times in my life where my sole sense of connection and community and belonging was through books. And I remember, you know, just what it meant to me when I first saw my name published, you know, in print for the first time in a book. And so there's a very live sense always for me of what I can bring to other writers by, you know, drawing them into that circle and giving them that sense of, oh yes, I live here, I'm at home in this place. Yeah.
That's lovely. And I feel the same thing too, definitely. Robert, what about you? What keeps you going?
I was just going to say, yeah, it's I'm going to try and put the percentages right on this, Ingrid, so you can check on this just to make sure I'm right. I'm going to say it's about, you know, 50% responsibility, and it's about 150% privilege, you know, because when you do find that gem, like, it is a huge privilege, and you're delighted, and, you know, all the work for getting there is worth it every time, and you forget every time until you have that fresh feeling of, you know, this is great, and we're gonna publish it. So that's worth it all.
Yeah, those numbers work out.
Those numbers are okay. Cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Rachel?
Yeah, I think it's just like giving back, like everybody says, and also just being part of this wonderful international Flash community. Yeah, which is just so enjoyable and fun, and connects us all. Yeah, so that's, for me, that's a biggie.
And Christopher, what keeps you going? Because you've been doing it for a very long time, I think.
I hope I'm not the last person to talk, because I'm going to say something that's kind of might be off topic. But one of my greatest joys is that Smokelong is able to pay editors. And so we have created a business model that we are able to pay 6 editors something, you know, each month. And we are able to pay workshop leaders, webinar leaders, people who do readings for us. We pay everyone who does that. That is one of my the things that I dreamed of doing when I took over Smokelong. We're going to make this thing a paying journal. We're going to pay a considerable amount. Now we're paying up to 150, and we're paying some editors are making enough, it's like this is a large part of their freelance income for the month. And so I don't want to make it about money, but it's like making a journal viable in that way for the editors, and it's not 100% about the writers, but it's like doing it all for the writers. But it's wonderful to be able to pay them too. And so somebody else talk about something more romantic.
No, but I think it's a wonderful point. So many magazines just don't make it, and editors have to eat. So I'd say congratulations. I mean, I think it's a great point. I mean, and I think it's true. And not many magazines sort of are that solid, I think. And I think it's a great vision to have and to put together. I really do. I think it's a great way. So no, definitely not. It's not bad to talk about money. It's fine. Anybody want to add something romantic then?
I liked what Robert said about finding that gem of a story and that making it all worth it. I totally agree with that.
And I also just picking up. Oh,
sorry.
I also think the flash fiction community is particularly lovely and encouraging and welcoming, and it's a really lovely community to be plugged into. So
true.
That's lovely.
Come on in, the water's fine. Come on, everybody. Everybody out there, just join in. It'll be fun. You won't regret it.
Join us for the UK Flash Fiction Festival in July. Ingrid and I will be there.
Yeah.
Any more advertising? I think we're at the end. On my time it says we're over. So I don't know if we'd like to close. I don't know. National Flash Fiction Day, yes, is going ahead, and there are many more events coming, and so stick around and follow the program. Go back to the website, and then the next event will be starting on the half hour.
Oh, I'll just clarify. The next event happens to be it's a youth reading, and that's going to be moderated by Fingers Kamato's contributing editor Thomas Cancross. So he's going to talk to some of our youth shortlisted writers next.
So stick around for that. There's another great event and many more to come throughout the day. So thank you to our editors, and thank you to the audience. Thank you to Michelle. Thank you so much to everybody. Keep writing.
Bye-bye. Thank you.